Hi, my name's Dan Keane. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. A few months ago, I created a project called the DK Isolation Collaboration, which was basically an appeal to the piano book community to come forward and contribute a sound. Now, this could be a found sound, a noise around the house, you singing, playing an instrument, things like that. I expected maybe 5 people to do it, maybe 10. I think back then I had about 500 subscribers, so I wasn't sure how active that community was going to be. Well, anyway, 200 entries were sent in, and what resulted was the largest Logic project I've ever had, with the Isolation Collaboration sitting as the 713th track in my Logic session. Now, this was very, very exciting, and I did a whole film about it, about how I sort of created 4 sort of basic sound worlds. The first one was this layer called Soft Burbles. The second was Sharp Pulses. The third was Weightless Atmospheres, and then finally was Rough Edges. And I sort of produced them in a way that the various sounds could fit into these categories. And so you can see that I've separated things up. First of all, I had to categorize them by colors, and then I dragged them over to the relevant areas, and then I had to create various zones. There were 16 zones in total that would each overlap each other and make something that was ultimately musical, because, you know, all of these sounds colliding together were not musical to begin with. Then as we go slightly further down the project, you can see I've started to introduce ingredient groups. So I've got things that are layered up in terms of particular ranges and the particular sounds. And all of this came together in the form of a final instrument that sounds a bit like this. Now, you can download this instrument for free from the Piano Book website, pianobook.co.uk, and I was really, really excited to get this out there. And I don't know if you've downloaded it and if you've used it, but I find it to be really inspiring, because the whole idea with this was that I wanted to create a pad that just felt like it just kept on going. So every note is 30 seconds long, and there were also 2 round robins. So when you play the same note again, it triggers a different part of the recording. So you're not always listening to the first few seconds of the Isolation Collaboration. Now, in order to give you some extras, what I thought I would do is separate off the various sound kind of food groups, I suppose, and turn them into instruments of their own. So they're relatively light, just with 16 files in each instrument. And basically, I've just got one layer, which I'm fading in here using this knob here, and you can see that I've got it set to CC1, but you can set it to whatever you like. I just like having a fader on my MIDI keyboard that I can use to adjust the volume and sort of artistically shape the performance as I'm writing a piece. So I thought I would just go through, this is a relatively short video, I would just go through, play you the various options, and then leave a download link down below. I'm not going to put it up on Piano Book, I don't think, because most of these sounds are already contained within the Isolation Collaboration, but this is framed in a slightly different way and is going to give you a little bit more control, because you're not suddenly going to be switching gears from Soft Burbles into the Sharp Pulses layer or the Weightless Atmospheres into the Rough Edges. It's just the sound worlds themselves and a little bit of light looping. So I'm just going to go through and play, and yeah, I really hope you like this. It's been such a fun project to do. So this one is almost like a soup, you know, it just sort of glides through, really, really nice as a kind of low layer, particularly the low regions as well. And then as we go further up, I'm starting to introduce more of the kind of bell-like elements. Now, because I've separated these off between what was level 1, which was the soft burbles layer and the weightless atmospheres layer, and then level 2, which was the sharp pulses and rough edges, because we've separated them off, they never get too big now, you know? It's sort of slightly more contained, which I think could be a little bit more useful. And as I said at the beginning, it has a little bit more control to it. Now, this next one is wrongly named. This is the weightless atmospheres one, and it sounds like this. So these are far more like padded instruments, really, really soft, slow evolving elements. And I suppose now is a good time just to show you how I've created those layers. As I mentioned, there were 16 different files, each that start on either a C or an F sharp. So we've got these overlapping regions that last for a full octave, and they're always being tuned down. So this note is a C1, it's being tuned down as far as a C0, and then over the top of that, we've also got an F sharp 1 to F sharp 0 as well. So there's always going to be a little bit of an overlap. So when you're playing this instrument, it doesn't feel like you're moving between the different zones. I think that makes it slightly more sort of homogeneous. Now let's go into the slightly more percussive elements. This is sharp pulses. So this is really all of the little bowls, the cups, lots of kitchenware in this section. Now, what I like in particular is the drones that don't really evolve, they just kind of pluck away, and it's sort of a little bit like my Thrumming Textures sound world. I used a similar kind of concept for creating this patch. If you listen to the low notes, the drones in particular, you've got this slight kind of undulating feel, and as you can see, as indicated by the UI as well, it's got a slightly gritty nature to it, and so I've produced it in that way to kind of bring out the slightly harsh side that you'll get. Now this is quite similar to soft burbles in a way. If I just compare, it's still got the feeling of that little kind of murmuring under the surface, but I think sharp pulses just gives a little bit more punch. Finally, I'm just going to show you the rough edges, and I really, really like this. It's got a particular vibe to it. Now, as I mentioned before, every single note here is quite long, and originally it was 30 seconds long because it had two sound worlds joined together. So with this, every single note is going to be 15 seconds long, and that's going to give you enough time just to kind of plonk the sustain pedal down and let it kind of go. I think this could work really well under sort of documentary footage, stuff like that. If you just need a drone that just keeps undulating, I'd maybe recommend the soft burbles layers. But also there's a lot of kind of characterful stuff in there, and I hope as a contributor you might be able to hear your sound, your plucked note, your wine glass, things like that in there. Again, it's available for free down below. Do check it out and let me know what you think. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.